Elphelt takes less damage thanks to the decrease in her defense modifier value. Previously, this sequence did 111 damage. Here's how much damage she takes now. 106, so a decrease of 5 damage, which is pretty on par for what we see across the entire cast. Elphelt's 6B has 2 changes, a nerf and a buff. The buff to it is that it now has increased active frames. This means that the opponent should be able to be more successful to be getting hit by this move in its later active frames. The nerf to it is, as you would expect, increased recovery, which we'll compare side by side. It seems pretty marginal, but again, this falls in line with the system mechanic changes that have made 6B a little more punishable on whiff overall. 6 Slash had its damage increased. Previously, it did 39 damage. And in the current patch, it does 48 damage, so an increase of 9 damage, which is pretty decent. Bomb-Bomb Chocolat has a couple of adjustments to its blowback. From a stationary position, it was pretty easy for Elphelt to get pickups from this move. However, if you had some momentum going with her, it could get a little trickier. They've decreased the horizontal blowback as well as increased the launch height while decreasing the falling speed. This should make it easier for Elphelt to pick up these combos, but it will also fundamentally change some of the setups that she had before. One notable thing is that it definitely feels easier to pick up a far slash in that particular situation when you have some running momentum from it. Overall, this should be a net buff for Elphelt, I would imagine, but Elphelt players are going to have a little bit of time to redo their muscle memory to get used to the new behavior on hit for this move. Here I Go, the beginning of Elphelt's Rekka series, now has the ability to be dash cancelled on contact. This opens up tons of new opportunities for Elphelt to restructure her pressure. In terms of pressure, usually once she entered Here I Go, the opponent basically knew that they were in a high-low mix-up situation that she could cycle through. So there really wasn't too much other to look out for that. But now with the dash cancel, Elphelt can either throw in a cheeky little throw, or just restart her pressure from normals. This is a pretty great buff to make the character have a little more depth to her and her Rekka series in terms of pressure. It is worth demonstrating that any pressure that you get after this dash cancel is going to be fake. However, because you're threatening a whole bunch of frame trap highs and lows, the opponent should be in a position to respect this overall. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. So from an overhead mix-up sequence, you can all of a sudden go for this cross-up on the opponent. You'll also note it's possible to confirm off of this. It's a very simple demonstration of what you can do, but honestly, this adds yet another crucial layer to the Rekka mix-up, making it even more potent than before. This is also really good because if the opponent does try to mash on you here for whatever reason, you are actually able to beat that mash because you'll go to the other side of the opponent before their normal comes out and punish it. This will be also true in the corner against most reversal normals. However, there might be some characters that are able to catch Elphelt in this, so be sure to do your labbing. However, you may not find the same success against some reversals. However, in terms of a human actually doing this, there's a couple of nuances to the situation. If you're a little slow with your reversal, Elphelt should be able to go over most of them, and thus you two will be pretty much set into a safe space if she does this in mid-screen. Of course, in the corner, well, then she's pretty much not going to be able to avoid these. Of course, not all reversals are built equally. So it's up to the Elphelt players to lab out which reversals they have to be on the lookout for and which ones they can be able to bait and punish with this. Of course, this also means that if you use Here I Go in the corner, you can go into Bomb-Bomb Chocolat mix-ups instead of going for the Rekka pressure, just as another layer of offense. So again, this is another option that the enemy has to potentially watch out for. For potential combo routing, in my bit of testing, it does seem fairly limited. You're not really able to link any of Elphelt's normals after a dash cancel from a close slash to heavy slash launcher. There's also potential use for this cancel and combo routes, though, as part of maybe some arguably gimmicky setups. For example, without the Rekka cancel, you stay same side. But with the Rekka cancel, you go for cross-up on the opponent, and then you're able to do air dashes into highs and lows here. But you're doing this without the presence of Bomb-Bomb Chocolat to give you a little bit of extra coverage and advantage. So I'm dubious as to whether or not this is actually going to be anything effective. There's certainly more to explore with this potential cancel right here in terms of her combo routing, but I haven't seen anyone really post anything on Twitter under the character hashtag, as most of that page seems to be dedicated to either gameplay of the character or some fan art of the character. They've changed some of the properties of Nailed It, the shotgun follow-up during Chain Lollipop you use with Heavy Slash. So let's take a look at some of the properties. Firstly, they did increase the damage as well as adjusted the blowback on it. So we'll go ahead and look at the old behaviors now. Previously, it did 37 damage, and as you can see, it blew Asuka pretty far away from us. Additionally, he teched upon landing, and near the corner, there really wasn't much else to write home about. Let's take a look at the new properties. As you can see, the blowback is dramatically less, and the damage has been increased from 37 to 52, which is pretty good in my opinion. Additionally, Asuka did not tech upon landing, so this means that Elphelt can use this as a reliable way of getting knocked down in pressure if she goes into Nailed It for any sort of mix-up option. Additionally, near the corner, it now has a wall bounce to suck them out of the corner as well. There's probably some combo potential here to be explored. More noticeably, though, is that with this wall bounce, you're actually in the position to OTG the opponent with a crouch light kick, cancel into Bomb-Bomb Chocolat, and then continue to run offense. It's honestly a pretty good setup to give Elphelt access to even more mix-up off of some of her confirms and getting reliable resets against the opponent. Bomb-Bombniere has been overhauled, so let's talk about how it used to behave before. Previously, this was a proper throw. As you can see, Elphelt was then able to combo afterwards and usually get a nice extension afterwards for it. However, it always felt like an expensive mix-up. Most other characters had command throws that were pretty much free, and you could then spend the meter afterwards to combo. Elphelt kind of skipped this step of being able to choose whether or not to extend with an RC, and instead had to dump her meter into getting this off in the first place. Using this near the corner also had some detriments to it as well, because if you stuck the wall with the opponent, then you basically had to wait for the bombs to go off to break the wall, as if you added another normal to it, the explosion would miss entirely. And even then, the damage for doing that wasn't that much greater. Furthermore, you couldn't combo into this. So the limited application of it overall meant that even with the buffs it received, there wasn't really too much use for it in Elphelt's kit. Now, the move has been changed into a hit grab. So it's been purposely rebalanced around the fact that it's not an expensive mix-up tool for Elphelt, but rather part of her set play that she can use. Let's check out how many properties with the move have changed. If you hit this raw on the opponent for whatever reason, they are pushed a little farther away from Elphelt now. You'll also notice the lack of crumple state on them. However, you'll also notice just how much longer it took for the bomb to detonate. The idea of this is to attach the move in the middle of combos and then have the opponent have to hold this bomb pressure as you run your offense. Elphelt can also have some control over when these bombs detonate by detonating them with particular moves, like her standing heavy slash or her Bomb-Bomb Chocolat. So effectively, this can give her extra damage whenever she uses these moves or extra pressure on block. Other moves can also detonate the bombs as well. For example, Miss Charlotte. Here I go. Her jump heavy slash. Nailed it. Up high. Down low. Pretty much the simple way of remembering it is that any explosive from Elphelt, so Bomb-Bomb Chocolat, and anytime she fires her gun will detonate the bombs on the opponent. So there's tons of potential setups as well as pressure sequences that you can use to detonate these bombs and get better conversions or unreactable, unseeable mix-ups, I imagine, when you use these moves. And again, I think that's really cool for the character to actually have a great niche for this super of hers now. The last part to note about it is because that now you can combo into it, the first strike part of the attack will now trigger a wall break. That, as you might notice, with the instant wall break that you get, the opponent is then put into a hard-knocked situation with the bombs on them that can be detonated by a Bomb-Bomb Chocolat, making this a pretty viable way for Elphelt to try and snowball her damage whenever she gets the opponent near the wall. I feel like this gives a meaningful choice for Elphelt as far as which super she wants to use. She can use Bomb-Bombniere if she doesn't have a kill on the opponent and then go for set play afterwards, or she can use her other overdrive in order to go for a kill. And I think that's pretty sick. Elphelt's last change is actually to her Wild Assault. In the previous version of the game, she had Blue Wild Assault. In a way, this almost didn't make really enough sense for her, as she didn't really have any unique resources for her to manage. Unlike Happy Chaos, she doesn't have bullets or concentration that she could then regenerate using this move. Unlike Asuka, she doesn't have any spells that she could bookmark or mana to regenerate. And unlike Baiken, she doesn't have any tether sequences that required her to have a guard crush advantage in order to press that advantage. Blue Wild Assault kind of felt like an odd choice for her, I would say. Now, Elphelt has Red Wild Assault, which means she'll be able to use this to increase her combo potential as well as advance her corner carry overall. And I think that given her toolkit and the way it behaves, I think this is a much better choice of Wild Assault color for the character to have. And you can already go up and look up potential new combo routes she has because of the way that Red Wild Assault lets her extend these routes now. I think with this Season 4 patch update to Elphelt, it's simple to say that this is the best version of the character that Guilty Gear Strive has seen. Looking at all these changes, I can just see that a lot of thought sort of went into these changes to try and improve her and to give the player more meaningful ways of distinguishing themselves and how they use her kit. There's a lot more interesting things going on, especially with the changes to Here I Go. Instead of just entering here's your unreactable mix-up situation with Here I Go, now you can dash cancel and do even other scummy mix-up layers to that I think open up the character to a lot more potential that keeps the opponent on their toes. In addition to that, I love how they've overhauled Bomb-Bombniere in order to give it an actual utility within her kit rather than just like this overglorified command throw thing or potential mix-up thing. Now, there's kind of feeds into the set play identity that the character has by giving her an even more expensive way of putting you under more dangerous mix-up situations when she's near the wall, thus giving her more interesting choice to make between what overdrive she needs to use to break the wall or which one she rather would use. Though safe to say, now, if you're not going to kill the opponent, you use Bomb-Bombniere, and if you don't have a kill on the opponent, you use your other overdrive. I really like the changes to Elphelt in this patch. I feel like they feed into giving the player more choices to make and therefore having more fun with the character and in turn distinguishing one Elphelt player from another. And it seems like Elphelt is going to be in a pretty decent spot. At a recent TNS that's happened in November, Elphelt was able to get into the top 8 of that bracket, which is one of the most competitive Guilty Gear Strive Online brackets in North America. So to see this character do that well in that environment bodes incredibly well for the character going forward in Season 4. Out of all the characters that I've analyzed so far in these patch notes, I think that Elphelt is certainly one of the characters that has the most fun changes to her. Of course, it's easy for me to say that when I'm simply looking at her and not considering the prospects of having to fight this character now, but even just looking at it from that angle, I really have to applaud Arc System Works. I think they did a great job with this character and her patch note changes this round.